afternoon, everyone. My name's Olivia Grace, and welcome to episode 5 now of Wowhead Weekly. I am joined as ever by the Wowhead site manager and by co-host Peculiar. How are you doing this week, Perk?
Awesome. My SDCC plush came in, so we have
cool.
another plushie for the
And you
background
match
now.
it. That's
Super cute. Yeah,
it is. It's so
match.
cute. Is it got like a wire in the tail or something? That's
Yeah,
adorable.
it's really cool. You can, put it around your arm or anything. I have it around a lamppost, actually.
That's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, it's super cute.
It is super, super cute. Oh man, I'm actually quite jealous. I didn't get one this year. Well, I'll have to try and get one. Hopefully they'll come up on the store soon. So we've got a ton to talk about this week. We've got 2 new builds, not just one, not two. Actually, technically, I suppose it was 3, wasn't it? Because
we had that. One was just bug fixes.
Yeah, we had that bug fix one. So we had one on Monday, and then we had another one that came in very, very, very late on Wednesday night, and then Perk was AFK the afternoon. I was just like, oh no, not another one. I'm so tired of these builds. So after a week off, we were very happy last week that we had a week off from doing data. But this week they took their revenge with 2 massive builds.
Yeah, they had so much information in them.
Yeah, exactly. So we found a ton. So moving on to those builds, we've got a lot of data highlights. First up, the Alliance Chopper is in. So it was quite expensive, wasn't it?
Yeah, so they took one of those mount template spell IDs we talked about in previous weeks, and they changed it to have the name for the Alliance Chopper.
Yeah.
So then they said, based on the data we have, because we've pulled the mount journal information onto Wowhead, we could tell that it was sold by this guy named Polly in Stormwind. So we went there, and while the bike is just a cube on the ground, we can see that this guy sells the chopper for 100,000 gold for the Alliance.
Wow.
And it's not affected by faction discounts.
That's pretty big. That's a pretty big price. How are you feeling about that? Is that what you expected?
I mean, when they said that it would be around the level of the Yak mount, which was over 100,000, I was thinking it would be around that range.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider how black market auction house mounts can be even more expensive. But yeah, I'm not surprised it's that cost based on the price of, other luxury mounts, or how, Miss Pandaria jewel crafting mounts took those orbs of mystery to craft, which, took a lot of gold, like 25,000 each, something like that. So, we went from being surprised that the bike was existing last week, and now it's, on the data.
Exactly. And I don't feel like it's too expensive. It's definitely a fair chunk of cash. But I mean, I think that there's been a lot of complaints about the cost of it. But I think people have to remember that, of course, the Alliance Chopper didn't win.
Yeah,
it was a competition.
They could have voted.
They should have voted. So yeah, it was a competition after all. And even in any competition, something has to win and something has to come second. And the Alliance Chopper did come second. So this is us paying the virtual price for not voting. Basically,
yeah,
I love the name. I love the name, by the way, just as an aside, like the Champion's Treadblade, because I know a lot of people were just like, what are we doing? What is it? Is this like the Azeroth snowmobiles with all of these treads?
Yeah, as a side note, I was very amused by how all these choppers were playing out. So my personal blog, I wrote this spoof for Romeo and Juliet and Azeroth choppers, and I just pretty much wrote a huge chunk of the play talking about how the bikes are star-crossed lovers that were torn apart, and now they'll be memorialized back in the game.
It was so funny.
I'm on my Twitter. You can.
Yeah, I'm gonna remember to link that in the description of the video on YouTube as well. So if you want to read that, it is hilarious. So moving on, we had a ton of other stuff for pets, a bunch of pet battle information, well, not pet battle information so much as pets and cool pet accessories. So we had a cow pet, which had been being teased on Twitter. So tell us about the cow pet. What do we know about this cow pet?
Well, so the Blizzard devs were having these vague cryptic tweets that, the cow operation is a go, and we data mined this for real cow pet, and has really cool abilities like Where's the Beef and Utter Destruction. And people were super excited about the cow pet out of all the pet battle editions. I don't know why, but yes, there's a cow pet. It's spotted. It looks like a cow. It has a bell. And we also have a Frostwolf pup pet, which has a super cute model. And the means of acquiring it are still unknown, but it's coming. So that's very exciting.
Do we know how to get the cow pet? Because it's listed in the data right now as coming from Garrison Pet Battles. Do we think that's accurate?
I'm not sure. I think that we saw in the data that it could also come from, I think, something tied to the barn, maybe. So
it makes sense, after all.
Right now, the garrisons are still pretty buggy. I don't think anyone's gotten it yet, but we'll know more. We keep updating our battle pet guide with all
Mm.
of the pets on Wowhead. So if we find the pet, we will definitely tweet more because everyone seems very excited about
Yeah,
this
for some
pet.
reason. Like, I think it looks awesome, don't get me wrong, but it's sort of all the pets for everyone to get really excited about, the cow
Of all the
pet.
data mining, the
Yeah,
cow pet is our most
yeah, exactly.
exciting announcement.
Definitely. So something that I was really happy to hear about because I think it's just adorable. I love the like not so much like I love the pets of course, but I really love the things that you can do to your pets, like the Hummel's pet biscuit for example, where you can grow them
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So I was really happy to hear about all these toys which allow you to play fetch with your pets. So there's
Yeah.
various different ones like the bones that they bring back and other sort of duck related ones and all sorts of cute things that can play fetch. Not with every pet, I don't think, but with most pets. It does say that in the tooltip that it's most pets.
Yeah.
So that was fun and exciting. And we also we've had a bunch of other pets as well. We've had a hydraling, we've had some spore pets, fruit hunter, Atlanticor sporling. I'm not exactly sure what that even is, to be completely honest.
It's this very creepy looking, I don't even know what to describe it as. We have a model, looks like a three-headed
Mm.
Hydra, but a scary version. And apparently it's from the Lanticore, which is classified as a rare elite in the new UBRS. So I
Ah.
guess that's, an incentive to keep running that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really cool that they're using pets as an incentive to go back into old
Yeah,
content.
definitely.
Yeah, and we had also a land shark, which I thought was an entertainingly named one in the
Yeah, we've
data.
seen a baby shark data mine for
Mm.
like expansions, and it looked really cool. And it looks like that model's finally making it, and it's a shark in a bubble,
That's fantastic. So
which is,
kind of like,
pretty cool looking.
yeah, kind of like fishy, but much more sort of sharky and
Yeah,
aggressive. So
exactly.
that's definitely fun. We also had a new scenario, which I found really interesting because I saw it in the data, this Colosseum thing, and obviously we don't exactly know much about it, but the quests which are associated with it are actually PvP related. So if you
Hmm.
remember last week we had a question about scenarios and what was going to be the fate of them in Warlords of Draenor, and this I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Perk, is this the first one we've seen? This Colosseum
Yeah.
scenario?
Yeah, we haven't. We've just seen all the scenarios have been for like single player quests.
Hmm.
This is new.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
like we don't know a huge amount about it just yet, but there are two. It's sort of got this sort of flavor text on it of like coming in and fighting until you win. And then there's these two PvP quests around it, which are basically just they seem to be like placeholders right now, but just go to the place and fight some stuff. So I'm actually really excited to see what's going to happen there, particularly
You
if
know,
it does turn out to be PvP.
this reminds me, we did see this the sparring arena got some
Hmm.
updates. I don't think we've covered it in the news yet, but there's something where if you kill various players, you get lots of bones and you can bring the bones to the sparring arena and then you can um fight some sort of champions tribute or whatnot. So I wonder if that's related.
That could well be actually. I was
I
beginning to
haven't
wonder.
killed hundreds of people, obviously, on
Yeah.
the yet, but we do
I
have
will
some
have to.
quests tied to some sort of sparring arena PvP flavor.
I will have to start hunting people on the beta and see if I can get my sparring arena to launch me into a scenario. Sorry, people on the um, we've also got a couple of new transmog items, a bit of transmog news. So we've got the transmogrification to allow yourself to look like a city guard. Yes,
Yeah, that is so
finally,
cool.
finally, because like we've been looking. I don't know about you guys, but over particularly on the EU server, which I was playing, EU servers which I was playing on when transmog first came in, the very first thing people started doing in Stormwind, at least on the Alliance side, was try and start looking like the city guards. And like it was one of those things where people were trying to bring the best city guard transmog and like talking on my servers particularly about how where to go to get the shields and where to go to get the right hats.
Yeah, and those pieces are always like pretty expensive on the
Yeah.
auction house and sought after.
Yeah, so it's obviously a popular thing to do, and so I'm really happy to see this. And how do you know how there's information in the data on how we actually get hold of that gear, isn't there?
Not, I don't think there is yet. We found
Oh,
a few
okay,
quests implying that if you complete a quest, you can get like the tabard
right,
for it,
that's
but
right.
I don't think it's implemented yet. We've heard tweets from developers that players can get these, but currently the Stormwind armor does not have 3D models attached to it.
Right.
But based on the names and what the Orgrimmar set looks like, we know that it's coming. And it's also good to mention that it looks like the guards, but it's an updated version of the
Hmm.
armor. So, character models are getting their high definition revamp, and
Yeah.
now we also have, if you look at your garrison, the guards have a spiffier version of their Azeroth armor. So, like the shoulders are more detailed, there's more, buckles and,
Hmm.
whistles on it. So, it looks pretty awesome actually.
Yeah,
The logo looks
definitely.
great.
Yeah, and I'm kind of hoping that the way that you end up getting the Stormwind, the actual armor itself, is going to be similar to the Tabard, where you're collecting up these scraps from mobs and from rares to hand in. So we'll see about that. The other really exciting Transmog news, we talked about this previously with the great guide on Wowhead about enchant glows. So if you're looking for information on enchant glows, do check out the guide on Wowhead. I will remember to link it in the Wowhead post for this. So have a look at that. There's a huge amount of enchant glow information in there. So, but they're on the beta, right?
We've data mined them.
We've
The
data
enchant
mined them, right? They're
building
not on
still
the
seems a
beta.
little blocked, but we
Yeah.
know now we know which enchants are going to be you know, usable for transmog form. So we've data mined maybe like 15 to 20 illusion scrolls for, you know, things like Mongoose, Executioner, Power Torrent,
Yeah.
and as well as really like weird, funny things like apparently there's butterflies.
Yes.
There's an option that lets you hide what your enchant looks like. And there's also a version where rogues can have their weapons dripping in poison. So we can't actually get these illusions yet. At least I couldn't when I tried leveling stuff up. But we know the popular glows that are coming, and if you think that one of your enchants are missing, you know, tweeting the devs is always good because they have been asking people what their favorite enchant glows are.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely do drop a line to, I think, Jonathan LaCraft is one of the devs who's been tweeting
Yeah,
about
the
this quite a lot.
Crafticus.
Yeah, the Crafticus. So there's a ton of them in there. And I was so happy. Like, my favorite is Power Torrent. I love the color changing nature of Power Torrent. So I was really happy to see that in there. The butterflies one sounds cool. And what are you, like, as a rogue, I'm sure excited about the poisons?
Yeah, also we data mined versions of the current Warlords enchants that were called like poison version, specifically for rogues. So apparently you can have the enchant and then also have some, you know, dripping green stuff on them as
Oh,
well.
wow. So you can
So
actually double up and have, like, a ton of
I think
different
so.
animations. That's kind of
Yeah, there's
cool.
also a version where you can enchant it with the current mop enchant but not actually see it. So I'm curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, definitely. And I was really happy to see the hidden one in there because, you know,
Yeah.
I think that, like, I'm hoping, like, quietly hoping that this is the first step towards the hidden shoulders that I've been wanting for so long. A way to
Yeah,
hide shoulders.
there's some weapons with really cool glows, like Fang of the Faceless has this really cool black glow to it, and I don't think there's a weapon enchant that has a black glow.
No,
So, you know, if you transmog to it and you don't want to see any enchants, you can just have this cool, unique glow on it.
that
So
sounds
I will be
fantastic.
going back and, you know, using that weapon as a transmog now that it won't be covered up by
Yeah.
everything else.
Definitely, for sure. So we've got a bunch of other information for leather workers this week. This is an exciting week for leather workers. Because you got these awesome tents. So, Perk, I know that you've been
Yes.
spamming tents. Tell us all about the tents.
Okay, so if you get your tannery, which is a leatherworking theme building, and you level it up to garrison level 2, you have access to a vendor who sells these really awesome tents. And the practical use of the tent is that you can drop it down, you sit in it, and you get a 10% boost to your stats, and the tents are BOAs, you can send them to an alt. But the really awesome thing is that the tents come in all different designs. There's, you know, a voodoo themed tent, there's an alliance themed tent, there's like a Naxxramas themed tent, and, you know, Arakoa themed tent, an enchanting tent. Pretty much tents, there's like, I
Yeah.
don't know, 20 tents, and they all look really awesome. So I've been having fun taking pictures of them, dropping like all 20 of them in a small
Yeah.
area. So I have a massive city of tents.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're just really cool flavor. Most you can get between both factions, but there's a few that are faction specific, like the Night Elf tent versus, you know, like the Blood Elf tent, for example. So
Yeah.
I really like that. Leatherworking's always been kind of like a stale profession
For sure.
where, you know, like at least blacksmiths make cool weapons or tailors have their carpets and leatherworking just sort of craft stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm excited that, you know, they're getting some cool flavor things as well.
Definitely. They also got a mount, this tan dire wolf mount as
Yeah.
well, didn't they? So that's
That was
awesome.
really exciting because
Yes.
the item page, the item ID was previously used for, I think it was like a chew toy, which was also cool, but not as cool. And then this recent build, when we were, you know, checking the pages, it changed to be a tan dire wolf mount, which
Yes.
sounds totally awesome.
It does sound
And
totally
this is-
awesome.
This is the first time I think leather workers have gotten a mount
It
to
is.
craft. So
Yeah, it's
that is
finally,
really cool.
at last, like, fun reasons to do leatherwork. And I think that's really important as well. Like, it's nice to have, like, leatherworking is a useful profession for crafting gear, for sure. Like, you've got a lot of gear that you can craft as a leatherworker. But I think it's really nice to have these sort of fun, flavor, additional things that you can actually do with professions. Like, you know, the magic carpet for tailoring and the fun, like, engineering is a great example of a profession which has not a ton
Yeah.
of practical use, but a bunch of fun things. So maybe they'll go back the other way with engineering and you'll get a bunch of practical items for engineering as well. And so moving on to another thing which has happened recently on the beta servers, we went into the Dark Moon Fair. So we were able to go back in, and we've spoken about the Dark Moon Fair a little bit in the past on Wowhead, but we found another new game, which is the Firebirds Challenge. So basically what it is...
It's so pretty.
Oh, it's so pretty. It's so much fun as well. I really enjoyed it, actually. So what it is, basically, you've got this little gnome person who's near to the Dark Moon Arena tent, and she's got wings, so she's easy to spot. Go to her, and there's a quest as well as the game. And what it is, it's kind of like a list resort. If you remember a list resort from the Firelands, you're kind of flying around through rings. So you're sort of zooming through the sky and going through these rings. And each time you go through a ring, you get an increase to a buff, which allows you to continue flying. So it's really fun. It's straightforward. And then there's an achievement for the 50 rings. So if you manage to do 50 rings, and it's actually, there's a video up on Wowhead and also on the Wowhead YouTube of it. And it's easier than it sounds. You've just got to make sure that
we both got it pretty quickly.
Yeah, we both got it pretty quickly. And it was like, okay, well, let's make a video of this. And it's just to make a case of making sure that you don't strand yourself, kind of. Like, make sure that you're going out and plotting yourself a way back in so you don't get stuck out in the middle of nowhere with no rings. But the really cool thing that it gives with this achievement is the wings, the Firebird's wings, kind of like the thing you got from a list resort. So
yeah, but it's like a permanent version of the really cool vanity.
Yes, yeah, and they're really pretty. These sort of lovely wings, and I think they've had the cloak fluid mechanic applied to them because they bounce and move really nicely when you run. It's an hour-long buff as well.
Yeah, it stays when you're mounted as well, and it's a toy, so you can access it on your alts via the toy box.
Yeah, absolutely.
A cool buff.
Yeah, definitely. So that's a really fun thing. And the game itself is just really fun. There's something fun about like flying around the Dark Moon Fair and sort of zooming through the sky that I just really enjoyed with it. And of course, the race game is back. We haven't spoken about this on Wowhead Weekly before. We have spoken about it at great length on Wowhead. So the race game, just run us through what exactly is that you're doing with that game.
Yeah, so basically you have this obstacle course where you're trying to hit flags in a certain order. And there are zeppelins that try to slow you down and give you debuffs, and you can run into helpful obstacles that give you like a speed boost or knock you forward, or they summon a hat of bunnies and the bunnies can taunt the evil zeppelins off of you, and you basically complete this obstacle course. It still seems incomplete because you can only do the first wave right now, but apparently there are several waves, and we've data mined rewards attached to these later quests, which imply that you have like items that give you special like movement speed or swim speed bonuses, which sounds really cool, like lasso bracers, for example.
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully, like the first round of the race is relatively straightforward. Like neither of us had any trouble completing it, so you probably won't either. It's really easy to do and it's really easy to win, particularly with all the bunnies, and the bunnies are adorable. Yes. So it's very straightforward to complete it. So hopefully the latter waves of the race will become more and more difficult, and you'll have to sort of be a bit more tactical and use some of these special items in order to get through it successfully. So it's really fun. We also had some new vanity items which we touched on previously as coming from the Dark Moon Fair, but they're actually in now, aren't they?
Yeah. So there's some, if you liked how the Gilnean NPCs looked, those, really cool sort of black and white and frilly, dresses, they have those unique shirts, you can buy, wearable versions of these items now for Dark Moon prize tickets. And they look really cool, and hopefully we can transmog them. Currently, I don't believe we can.
They're white, aren't they?
Yeah, they're white right now, and they're not tagged as cosmetic. But this other really cool thing that they added is this deck of cards. It's like the last deck of nobleman guy with the unpronounceable last name with an X. And according to Wowhead comments, it has lots of charges, and you can use them and get all sorts of cool temporary buffs when you use it. So that sounds pretty cool. It takes a hefty amount of tickets, but it's really awesome that, we've got beta testers that have logged over and have, over 100 tickets ready just to spend on this cool gear and, leave awesome comments.
Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate that from our beta testers and like putting comments on Wowhead. We love it when you guys do that.
Yes.
Like Wowhead is community made as much as Perk and I work really hard on it. So we really appreciate your input on all of these pages that you guys are commenting on. And there was also another thing which caused some people to sort of be very surprised, which was this haunting, note the ing, not ed, it's important, okay? It's haunting memento rather than the haunted memento. This is when I go back into the post and find out that I got it the wrong way around. But I'm pretty sure it's the haunting memento, which is the sort of ghostly thing which allows you to be haunted, which harks back to the Scourge invasion. That's correct?
Yeah, and a lot of people were surprised because that item was only available for a very short period of time. So people are like, hey, like I held on to this item for years and now people can just buy this, for a month of Darkmoon Fair tickets.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like, was it going to be exactly the same? I'm just pretty curious by what's happening to this. And you sort of have to walk a line, but like we were talking about the black market auction house last week of, putting old, really cool items back into the game and making, new players feel happy versus, old players still feeling like they have something special from, when they had a lot of time to, connect and play. Wow.
Yeah, it's definitely sort of an interesting line to be drawn there. But we also had a couple of other things which we were looking at. The corrupted blood elf disguise. We actually we found out how to get it. So Perk, run us down. There's a secret cave.
Yeah, so there's this cave off like the northeastern part of the Darkmoon Fair. There's an underwater shipwreck, and then there's like a cave underneath it. And if you go into it, there are these 100-level elites called Erinis?
I wanted to say
pronouncing things today.
I wanted to say Erinis, but I'm not really sure. But anyway, Erinis. However you want to say that, go nuts.
So they're quite deadly, and at this point, you'll need a group for them and probably some CC so you don't pull like 4 at the same time like we did.
Yeah, they have a huge aggro range, and it's sort of like you're in this water swimming up, like that sort of typical slope swim that you do to go into caves.
Yeah.
And I was, excuse me, coming to help Perk as the servers were literally shutting down. And we were like, oh God, oh God, oh God. I stuck my head out of the water and immediately pulled like 4 of them. It's like, damn it. So yeah, we have to obviously have a group, and you need to be pretty careful so you don't aggro the whole room at once, because they're really hard hitting. They one-shot me good and proper on my little mage. So
you kill these elites, and then you get an item that begins a quest, and then you turn that item to someone in the Darkmoon Fair, and you get this special Ring of Broken Promises, which is a toy, and it transforms you into this corrupted blood elf, which has a really cool, purple dress and these horns, and like your hands are all like green and purple and fel infused, and it looks really awesome. So that is another, cool thing that's coming to the Darkmoon Fair.
Definitely.
And yeah, we're very excited about that.
Yeah, it's a really fun thing. Like, it looks so weird and glowy and crazy. Yeah, it's really fun. We also saw the trinkets have returned. Like, this isn't exactly surprising. I don't think anyone's going to be hugely surprised to note the return of the Darkmoon trinkets, which are going to be coming from the decks again. So I'm going to assume at this point, at least, that it's a similar method to previous sets of Darkmoon trinkets, where you're going to collect up the cards. Whether or not they'll be craftable by scribes, we don't know.
Yeah, we've data mined stuff, but I mean, professions are in such a state of flux. But the really cool thing is that apparently you can craft what's called like a Joker card, and you can turn these Joker cards in to get any cards that you are sort of naturally missing from RNG. So that should speed up the process of, finishing your deck.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a nice addition, actually, because I can know, like, it could be incredibly frustrating to just be on a server where, like, the ace is, like, the missing one, or maybe the ace is a bad example, but the 5 is missing, for example, where you don't have that one card, and it really messes you up. So yeah, there's a ton of cool stuff in the Darkmoon Fair. There's videos of the 2 new games, and we've got a ton of information, so do check out the posts. I'm going to start putting a listing of topics of what we talk about with backlinks into the post when I post this on the Saturday.
Also, before we move on to the next section, add even more cool transmog things, so definitely check out the Wowhead front page. Like, we have new challenge mode weapon models. We're getting a video up on that soon. They look awesome, cool animations. And we also data mined some like high definition versions of tier like 0 and 1 gear, like what your character selection screen models are.
Yeah.
So we have all those models, in our recent posts on the front page. We don't know all the specifics about them yet, so that's why we're not getting into tons of detail on the show, but definitely check that out. Tons of data mined information.
Yeah, absolutely a ton of it this week. So obviously we always do this What's New on Wowhead. So coming up this week, last week was kind of the giveaway section. So a lot of those giveaways have ended. We've handed out a lot of prizes. I know about you, but I spent a ton of time giving people prizes this week. And it's been pretty fun. We really enjoy rewarding people for participating and, being being part of the show. And we're recording this on a Friday morning, so today's the day when I'm going to be sending out the prizes for last week's Wowhead Weekly Beta Key giveaway. But the big news is we're back with our big Wowhead level Beta Key giveaway. They fixed the armory. We announced we would be last time. So what do we do? We're doing Darkmoon Faire this week, right?
Yeah, exactly. The giveaway started right after we did the cool Darkmoon Faire preview. So basically, it's still pretty easy. You just have to go to the fair. You have to complete the, I was promised a pony achievement, as well as the Fairgoer's Feast, which is to, eat and drink a bunch of foods unique to the Darkmoon Faire. And they're on 2 vendors. They're not, limited supply of food. You just have to go, buy this cheap food, eat all of it, get your 2 achievements, and then you can enter our giveaway. And if you've done them a previous Darkmoon Faire, then you are already set. You can just enter in. You don't have to redo them or anything. And yeah, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, make sure your character is verified, obviously. If you've done them on a character that isn't the verified one, you make sure that's all there and you're good to go. So we've actually, one of the things we want to do with this is talk about what we're doing on Wowhead, particularly what's Perks, I always go the wrong way because it's mirrored, Perks doing on Wowhead. Because a lot of her stuff is very behind the scenes. So you've been working really hard on some item zone stuff just to produce good data for everyone to enjoy, right?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, Blizzard has been taking items, and instead of having like 1 page for every version of an item, they're consolidating everything into like this 1 hub page, and then there's variations that still stay on that 1 page. So, so like LFR, normal, heroic, mythic, all those things, that's just found on the same page, and then you modify that page. So we've been doing things like refactoring how we do tooltips so you can still link all of these versions correctly. 1 page now has many different 3D models, because like every difficulty has a different color, weapon or piece of armor. So basically, if you're on an item page, you can go to, select the item bonus. And if you select the difficulty, then when you click on view in 3D, it will show a new colored model. So, heroic will look different than mythic, for example, which is really cool. And it works how it sort of did before, but it's taken a lot of back end work to have the system sort of look like nothing has changed.
That's it. That's always the problem with what Perk does particularly. It's always the problem that if she's doing a really good job, which she does, you don't notice it at all because everything just works seamlessly and works perfectly and it all works how you'd expect it, which means that you think that she's doing nothing, which is categorically not the case. She works so hard on all this stuff. So what's really nice about this show is that we get to talk to you about that. So you can get a little bit of a behind the scenes into all the work that we put into Wowhead. People think it's automated a lot. Pretty much nothing we do is automated.
Like, some of it is automated, but we have to sort of set up a lot of behind the scenes things. So when we get the data in, it shows the correct things. So going back to the zones bit, what we've been doing is, because there's all these new raid difficulties, and now we have like legacy mode for the old things like, Ice Crown or, Firelands, and now we've got this, normal, heroic, mythic system for Siege of Argrimmar moving forward. We've had to refactor how when you visit a boss page, the tabs change. And because we now have 1 item versus like 4, we're trying to like dynamically update all the tabs to still show you the correct items and their stats, even though, in the data it's like the same, item. It wouldn't make sense if you're visiting a mythic tab and you're seeing like the normal mode version of an item.
Exactly.
So we are like 90% done with that project. It's a lot of work, but we're really excited. And it's starting to pay off because we data mined the first batch of raid items this week. And because we've been working on what Blizzard calls, the item bonus data, we can now see the heroic and mythic versions automatically and be like, okay, well, heroic is 570 and mythic's 585, and, the different models all work. So it's nice to see it coming together. It's been a lot of work though with this.
Definitely. And you've also been working some on the garrison side of things. You've got the garrison calculator, we've got a ton of information on followers, we've got missions, we've got you name it. So what else have you been doing? What more has been added?
So with garrison followers, now that we've got all the zones open, people are starting to collect followers, we decided to do some updates to our followers section. So a lot of your followers you get while questing, so we've made a special filter for quests that reward garrison followers. And if you're visiting the follower page or the quest page, we now have, linked these things up with the new tabs. So it's really easy, no matter where you are, you can see the quest that's associated with a follower, their rewards, and that is pretty useful,
Yeah.
I think. And
Oh
people
man.
were asking me if we could add something like this, so I'm glad that was relatively a
I'm
lot
thrilled.
easier than the item stuff.
For sure.
And
And I'm thrilled to see the quest, like the quest for followers filter. So you could, like, for someone like me who doesn't do a ton of questing as they level, like I tend to level mostly by doing instances. But I want to, say I want to have my garrison with a ton of followers in it and I want to have good followers and I want to make sure that I maximize that. I can just go and run this filter on Wowhead, check out all the quests that reward followers and just do those quests. And obviously there'll be,
yeah.
some of them will be part of chains and there's a lot of quests where you just do a couple and then you get a follower, but it's all there. So I can actually be really efficient going through zones retrospectively when I've leveled through instances, or indeed just the first time through zones for someone who quests normally. And you can just make sure that you're hitting those points which will get you followers so you don't miss out on any. So that's a really, really useful tool.
Yeah, and finally, because we've been data mining, a ton of changes to garrison perks and a lot of the lower level perks have gotten more interesting over time. We have gone back and expanded our garrison calculator to include the benefits you get from the lower versions of buildings, because there's 3 tiers to your garrison buildings. So if you're playing around with your calculator and you say, I want a level 3, stables, you can now see the benefits you get when you've built your level 1 and level 2 building.
Right.
So you can see all the benefits. You don't have to look stuff up in the database. It just is all right there in front of you, everything that you get for building your plots.
Absolutely. So there's a ton of work going on in the back behind the scenes just to make things work really nicely on the database. And we figured that, because we were enjoying doing the show and giving you stuff, we'd do another Wowhead Weekly key giveaway this week. So
Yep.
as last week, exactly the same thing. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, step 1. So there's a subscribe button. If you're watching this on Wowhead, click the YouTube button at the bottom and then hit subscribe. And I'll link it in the post as well, so you can just hit the link that says subscribe to our YouTube channel. And again, let us know your favorite topic that we talked about during the show. So if you like talking about the enchant transmog, if you like the data highlights, Dark Moon Fair, or anything we're going to talk about after this. Yeah, if you like perks, Brightwing, or anything we're going to talk about after this segment, then just let us know in the comments below and make sure you leave us your Wowhead username, because that's how we will message you. It will probably be me emailing you, and people who did this last week, it's going to be me emailing you with your beta key when you won. So make sure your Wowhead username is there and that it's typed correctly, because otherwise we can't contact you. The YouTube messaging system is horrendous, so we're not going to use it. So make sure that you do that and we'll get you out some more keys. So moving on. High speed show this week because we're in a limited time window. So we've got some interesting updates to the capital faction hubs, which are, as we all know, controversially located on Ashran. So it seems like each build, Blizzard is slowly adding more and more stuff to these faction hubs. They started off pretty sort of sad. When we initially took photos of them on Ashran, they were kind of sort of miserable little places, which
they were like a garrison catalog.
Yeah.
Like the garrison building.
Yeah, exactly. This is a catalog of the buildings you could get in your garrison. It very much felt like that. So they've been improving them every time. And last week we saw some improvements to the Horde one, with additional different races. And we saw, sorry, that was actually Monday's build. It feels like such a long time ago.
So much.
So much time has passed. So we had an undead section added in. There was some goblin stuff added in.
Yeah, there was the Tauren section, I think, and then the trolls had the spear hunters with their training dummies. And
yes, exactly.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah, so a ton of good stuff added into the Horde one, which just gave it a little bit more flavour and the sort of variety of the different racial buildings. Personally, I love undead and undead architecture, so I was really, really happy to see that come in, even if it's only one small plot. And a similar thing happened to the Alliance one in the most recent build, where they had a Draenei tent added, and I'm sure Perk's really excited to hear that there was a Night Elf Moonwell added.
Yes, I'm really excited. It's like an updated Moonwell too, so the graphics look super nice.
Yeah, it's a really, really pretty one. Really, really pretty. And I mean, I feel like these are just sort of expanding as well. They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So particularly finding the Moonwell to take pictures of it took a little while, because you had to sort of go down this little windy path into this forested section and find the Moonwell down there by the sea. And it's very, very pretty, but it's sort of, they're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and more buildings are being added. And they're slowly, and I mean, Again, I know that we're probably going to upset people by talking about these, because so many people are really vehement about this Talador and Bladespire thing. The Blizzard aren't going to do that. So let's just look at what we have and see how it's going. We're not saying that these are better than Talador and Bladespire. We're just telling you what's going on. But to me, they start feeling... Sorry, I
think if they just had made a blog, previewing some of these buildings, even if we couldn't log on and see them, it would have helped a lot of players. Because our first impression was people just logging on to the beta and seeing these tiny hubs.
Yeah,
But if they're like, hey, we're expanding them and these internal builds, we've got a Moonwell
definitely.
coming or like Undead coming, then I think people would have had a better first impression knowing
For
sort of
sure.
what like the overall game plan was versus,
Yeah.
checking Twitter or logging on and being like, oh, there's a new
I think
building
yeah, I think
finally.
you're right. I think the sort of announcement coincided really poorly with the opening up of Ashran on like addition of Ashran to beta servers, where we could actually get to it and take pictures of it at the time. And we didn't help, and we're sorry. But we were just reporting information. It's our job.
You didn't
Um,
know there'd be a Moonwell?
no, we didn't know there'd be a Moonwell. If we know there'd be a Moonwell, would have been really excited. So it's really nice to see these sort of turning more into cities, and they've been populated with NPCs as well. And there's been some really really fun ones in, like
Yeah.
what's his name, Zarland, like Zarlandor, like it's obviously meant to be
Yeah, this,
Zoolander, isn't
male
it?
Janai in like this white
Yeah,
tuxedo.
it's obviously a Zoolander reference, and he's doing things like he does poses for you. So he goes in and like it's screenshotted in the post. So he goes in and you've got here these sort of show me a pose thing, and it's the same pose every time. It's sort of this weird lean back and pout kind of pose for
Yeah.
Magnum, Azure Steel, and one other which I can't remember
It's
right
no,
now.
it's the Talbook. Yeah.
That's right, it's the Talbot. Yeah, you're exactly right. So there's some really fun NPCs in there, and particularly in the Alliance Zone now, where it was very empty before. There's been a bunch of profession NPCs added. There's a ton of like just general flavor NPCs, more people walking around, and it's sort of starting to me at least. And I'd love to hear what you think about this as well, Perk. To feel just more like a city now.
Yeah, I feel like less that I zoned in and I am like the mayor of the city. I
Yeah,
feel like this is a city I can just interact with and chill.
yeah,
And I like how all the factions feel represented now. I still hope they do more.
mm.
But I like how there's, an NPC that's selling these interesting sweets that, no one else, you can't get anywhere else. I
Mm.
like how there's, beer you can get. I like how, the auction house is really decorated now. The
Yeah,
barracks have NPCs, hanging out and eating food. There's a Draenei playing music in a corner with a really cool looking harp. So it feels like there's just a lot more flavor. And I think it needs some more work, but I'm happy that it's there. I like how the Moonwell's out of the way. There's a
yeah.
few other things that are out of the way, and I like that there's still a sense of exploration because the rest of Draenor feels very exploration heavy, and these
Yeah.
zones just sort of felt very straightforward
Yeah,
before.
definitely. Particularly because they were so small and concentrated on
Yeah.
these little peninsulas by themselves. And the additions, and I'm hoping like there's a bunch of buildings which are obviously still kind of under construction. Like they're not under construction so much as they're unfinished in the beta from a development perspective, but they've obviously been built by Blizzard to look like they're actually being built by the inhabitants of the city. I made a real
Yeah.
hash of explaining that, but I hopefully you understand what I mean. So they're actually
They
like
are
there's
NPCs
yeah.
building
There is
scaffolding.
literally NPCs building these buildings, which are a scaffolding. So I'm hopeful that we'll see more and more races represented with their different architecture soon. And there's, they've done a good job of like making it feel less like a copy pasta of a garrison and more like something a little bit different, which is really cool. And we've got a couple of interesting other NPCs in there, which is one of the ones we wanted to highlight was this guy called Fate Twister Seras, who sells the Seals of Tempered Fate for 4 different currencies, which are honor points, garrison resources, gold, or Apexis crystals. So my first thought here was it's interesting that a PvP currency is used. Now they did speak in the past about how for rated PvP, for certain types of rated PvP, and it's been very up in the air and very sort of
Yeah,
non-specific.
we haven't seen updates recently about
No,
this.
nothing
At
recently.
one
So
point we did.
yeah, it's been a while, and obviously we've become a little wary of assuming that things which were talked about a long time ago are still in. So with that caveat, there has been talk in the past of PvPers being able to use coins and bonus rolls to get another chance at gear, which is coming from these sort of lockbox type gear distribution methods. So it's possible that this would be a way for players to get that additional role for their PvP gear so that you could turn in honor rather than having to do PvE in order to get PvP related currency. So I was kind of interested to see that honor thing there, which kind of suggests to me that maybe that system is still going to be in. We've
It's
also
also
obviously
interesting because you could technically now PvP and you could PvP to get this currency which
yeah.
you then could use for PvE roles.
Yeah, which is kind of
So,
nice. Like it's a kind
yeah.
of good crossover in either direction. Like it's sort of nice. Obviously, people who PvP don't want to have to PvE to get their PvP stuff, and people who PvE don't want to have to PvP to get their PvE stuff. And perfectly fair, perfectly reasonable. Good game design should not make them cross over into content they don't want to do. Um, But there was an interesting reaction here saying, so does this mean that the garrison building that rewards the bonus rolls is going to feel required to people? I mean,
I
like,
mean,
what do
it
you
is
think?
interesting because a lot of people, yeah, we've both been included in all these Twitter conversations
Yeah.
because people are like, well, I don't want to. So, for first, we should clarify that even though there are 4 quests and the garrison building, you can only get 3 coins a week maximum,
Right.
like you currently do. So, you can't get 5 a week. It's not like your garrison building gives you like 4,
Yeah.
or, if you do everything, you get 5.
Yeah.
Um, so there's a choice. You can only do these 3 weekly quests. And if you have your garrison building, the armory, that means that you can have your armory and you only have to do 2 quests. So people might be like, well, I don't like the PvP and I'm
Mm.
bad with gold, so maybe I should just, get the armory and, do the 2 quests for the currencies that I like.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's really important to clarify there as well that if you are a PvE focused player, you're not going to have to get a bunch of honor points to buy your fourth one. It's 3 per week, regardless of how you get them. So there's no sort of PvP force there. You don't have to do that to get them, and it's fine. Don't worry about it.
I know people have said, like, I don't want to pay 500 gold, that's a
Mm.
lot, but I don't really think 500 gold is a big deal, especially, this just came to mind. If you go to the
Mm.
Isle of Thunder, there is that, like, Thunder King speedrun that you can do, to loot the chests to get all that gold. And,
Yeah.
like, that's a few hundred gold right there for, a 5-minute thing. So I
Mm.
don't think that, 500 gold is a big deal if you're serious enough that you feel that you have to have these seals to have a small chance at an extra piece of loot, then, I think with just some basic planning, you can get 500 pretty easily.
Yeah, definitely. And I think
See.
it's a neat system because there's options there. Like the Apexis crystals, you've got that side of things where you can earn those and use them to buy the stuff.
Yeah, we should talk more about
We
them
should.
because that's pretty new, and people are like, "Is this
Yeah.
the TBC thing? Like, what's going on? Like, can
Yeah,
I
for
turn in
sure.
my like, stuff from years
Yeah, so you've got
ago and
the.
get
We'll
epics?"
talk about those in a second. We've got the Apexis crystals. You've got the honor. You've got the gold. You've got the garrison resources, and you've got the building, the armory, if you want it. So there's 5 ways to get them. So if you feel that the gold cost is too much, then you've got 4 other ways to get them. If you feel that the garrison resource cost is too much, you've got 4. Like my answer to everything here is going to be you've got 4 other ways to get them. And so if you really hate 2 of them, you're still fine. You've got 3 ways to get them, and that's your maximum per week. And it seems like you're going to be, differently to Mr. Pandaria, you're going to be actually getting them, which they've spoken about in the past, 1 at a time rather than 3 at a time. So you don't have this bizarre system where you can't turn in 30 coins in order to get 1.
Right.
You're actually getting them 1 at a time, so it's much more manageable and straightforward to get them. But yes, Apexis crystals. So these are a new thing which has come back in, but they're not the same old ones from back in the Burning Crusade, which I think everyone will be relieved to hear.
Yeah, I mean, they still seem you still be earning a lot of them, but they're not tied to that really awful color machine and yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was horrendous. So how do we get them? There's a bunch of I don't feel like we have the complete story yet on the data on how to get them.
Yeah, we should. I mean, I want to write a post on this soon, but the data seems pretty incomplete, especially because the vendors were just added. But
Yeah.
basically, they're a new type of currency, and you can get them in different ways in your garrison hub now.
Mhm.
You can go on these daily quests to get 800 per day. But you actually go on missions, and then these quests reward you lots of crystals. And there are a few other ways you can get them. And we've now seen vendors in the capital faction hubs that sell you 3 different tiers of epics for the Apexis crystals.
Mhm.
And the obviously the lower item level one is cheaper, and then you can sort of upgrade it and get tier 2, and then finally tier 3. But the names are all placeholders, so they're subject to change. But basically, it seems like you can get epics with these Apexis crystals.
Yeah, exactly that. And obviously then there's the contribution of them to these sorts of things, and you're earning them different ways through these quests. And there's a couple of other quests which aren't specifically the garrison assault on quest, but like Perk says, the data is really incomplete right now. To me, they seem pretty similar to have, considering they were talking this big thing about removing valor points and taking currencies out of the game. This seems pretty functionally similar to a Valor Point-esque currency in so much as it's a currency that you use to supplement gear gaps. So I'm kind of curious to see what's going on with this one, like how it's
Even
going
the
to differ.
upgrades, like you're not actually going to an item upgrade vendor and upgrading it, like at a at the NPC, but you are taking the old piece of gear and then paying more Apexis crystals to get a better version of that piece of
Yeah, so it's pretty precisely a Valor Point style system, despite the removal of Valor Points. So that's interesting. And obviously, we'll give you more information as it comes to light. We don't really have like enough, like Perk was saying, to write a guide and really give you a ton of detail on them just yet. But they're obviously going to be quite an instrumental part of the Warlords of Draenor expansion. So we'll be definitely bringing you more information. So going on to something which is actually completely new for WoW at the moment is this 10th anniversary celebration.
Yes.
So yay, exciting. So obviously World of Warcraft is coming up for its 10th anniversary this year. And we were all hoping for something more than just a pet and a letter. And my God, we got it. God, we got more than a pet and a letter this year. So we do get a pet, don't worry. I'm sure it will come with a letter as well. And there's the Molten Corgi pet, which we data mine, I want to say like
July,
yeah. So recently data mined, which is this adorable little fire corgi. If I remember, I'll edit a picture in right here of this pet. And it's a really, really cute little pet. And literally just for logging on, right? You don't have to do anything other than just log on.
Yeah, I think so. But there's also this really cool mount, the Corehound mount,
Yes.
which you get when you. So there's like a max level version of Molten Core, which is in LFR style, and when you finish it, you get this Corehound mount, which is awesome.
Yes, it's very awesome, and there's a really cool model of it on Wowhead. You have to do a little hoop jumping in the comments to get to the model, but it's very, very cool. And again, if I remember, I'll put a little short video of it in right here. So there's obviously the Corgi pet, the mount. So you mentioned the Molten Core LFR. So okay, it's a 40-man Molten Core LFR.
Yeah.
So that sounds slightly terrifying to me, based on my LFR experiences.
I wonder, I mean, are you just going to fight the easy versions of the bosses but higher up? Or are they going to try to make it really painful and be like, well, you know, Molten Core is painful back in the day and we're reliving the experience.
Yeah, we're really reliving the experience of Molten Core and 40-man raiding. Like, a 40-man LFR just fills me with horror, if I'm completely honest. Like, I'm really excited. As someone, I didn't play in vanilla. I started during Burning Crusade. So I'm really excited to go back and actually experience it at level. That's really cool to me. So I'm looking forward to that. But I'm kind of not looking forward to it being an LFR.
Yeah,
because I could just see it being carnage. Like, I remember doing it, like, I think I was level 70 the first time I tried to go through there. And, like, that whole human bomb thing and running out and like mechanics like that just don't necessarily work in LFR. And I'm kind of curious as well, and again, I didn't do this at level, so I may be misremembering this, but weren't there fights where you had like massively varying numbers of tanks and all sorts of other organizational things?
Yeah, I did it back in the day. I remember my roommate and I would sort of spend our whole weekends doing it, and she was a fire mage, which wasn't really great for Molten Core, and I was a rogue, and all the tier gear was bad, but the offset gear was good, so I'd collect all of it. So I have a lot of memories there, and yeah, I mean, like, you are the bomb, you have to run out. I remember there were these trash packs before Magmadar of Corehounds, and if you didn't kill them all at the same time, they would come to life and keep rezzing each other.
Oh God, yes, you're right, yeah.
So, I can see that happening bad. That could be very bad.
Oh my God. Yeah, for sure. And it's just like, I mean, and also the other thing to note is that the Corehound mount is a reward for killing Ragnaros. And that kind of, to me, like, obviously he's the final boss. Spoilers if you didn't go in there already. It kind of suggests to me that it's not going to be in wings. So, because otherwise, if it was, people would only ever do the final
which
wing.
would be sad.
Yeah, which would be sad. And that's kind of not the point of this whole nostalgia, reliving the past kind of feel of this event. So I'm kind of feeling like a 40-man raid is going to have to do the entire of Molten Core in a sort of at-level style experience. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that comes.
I'm also curious about the other loot because, like I mentioned earlier, we data mined these like high-definition versions of all of the armor. And I was like, oh, this would be perfect if it dropped from the other bosses because, you know, hey, you're running Molten Core, you're getting like cool versions of, updated vanilla loot that, more like, spikes on it and stuff. But according to Twitter, that loot isn't associated with it. And I think it might be kind of boring if you're killing, 9 bosses and not getting any
nothing.
loot.
Yeah, exactly. So who knows? We don't know what's going to happen there. Owen Langren, who's one of the items guys, did confirm to Perk on Twitter that it wouldn't be from there. But we'll just have to wait and see. I can't believe they'd make you LFR your way through all of those bosses with no rewards. You must be getting something.
I guess it's trying to recreate the whole DKP 40-man experience where you didn't get loot after running Molten Core.
Yeah, exactly. You'll go in and you'll be awarded DKP and you'll lose them if you stand in the fire or something. Yes. And then, oh my God, it's going to be hilarious. So the other thing that was added in is Tara Mill versus South Shore Battleground. So obviously they can't revamp the actual original world PvP style experience of Terramil versus South Shore, but they have put in a battleground, and it's been very sneakily called the Troll 100v100 Troll Raid 2 or something like that in the data and in the
Yeah,
beta
they've
for some
recently
time.
changed it to coordinate
Yeah.
with your announcement. So.
Yeah, so very sneaky, Blizzard. We'll notice next time, okay? And so basically how it's going to be added to the game is as an instance battleground. So it's sort of one of those ones that you're going to go into. It's 100 versus 100, which just quietly, again, rather like the 40-man LFR, is insane. And it's been billed by Brian Helinka. He's been giving us a lot more detail on Twitter as a slow deathmatch grind. It's got the same layout as the old area. It looks like they've literally just taken the area and dumped it into a battleground. And he's been very clear that they've made no attempts to fix the original area and like any of the sort of problems. So if you're looking for a revamped, super tactical version of this, I feel like you may be disappointed. Like this is a nostalgia trip for the people who played during vanilla. So it's very, very similar. The honor system of old, which again, I played during Burning Crusade, not during vanilla. So forgive me if I misspoke. I'm sure Perk will correct me if I get this wrong. But basically how it's going to work in the current thing, the old one was you had to earn kills and grind your way up to this rank, which awarded you titles. But the new system is going to be as players earn honorable kills. So honorable kills, not killing blows. It's important if you're a healer. They level up through the original system, and the higher rank you achieve within this battleground only, so it's not transferring to the real world, the more points you're worth. So if you kill someone who's at warlord level, you're going to get a ton more points, and that's going to bump you up a few ranks if you were just at the starting point. And it sounds cool. It sounds kind of cool, but again, it kind of sounds like Carnage. It's kind of an interesting sort of nostalgia trip versus
Yeah, we'll see
like
how it holds up 10 years later.
I know, exactly.
Find fun.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like a really interesting sort of, what's actually going to be the outcome of this? Is it going to be all the people from vanilla going, oh my God, this is the best. I want this to be the game, like to be like this forever. Or is it going to be people going, wow, this actually kind of sucked? Like,
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned that you started playing more and Burning
Yeah.
Crusade. Like, what do you think of this 10th anniversary, just sort of focusing on, vanilla nostalgia as
Yeah,
someone
it's kind of a
playing
funny
during that period? Like,
it's
is
a-
it still fun for you?
It's a
or-
kind of mixed feeling for me. Like, I was kind of talking about it on Twitter, and like on the one hand, it's cool because I never got to experience these things that people talk about. And as someone who wasn't playing during vanilla, you hear a lot about vanilla. Like, I know all this stuff
Yes.
about vanilla, having never played it. So, and obviously, I do sort of talk a lot to people about World of Warcraft. There's something to that for sure. But it's sort of, I feel kind of like this is someone else's party that they've also invited me to, despite the fact that it's like if I went to a school reunion for a school that I never went to. Or if I went to
Yeah,
a
I
school
can- that-
reunion,
that's fair.
yeah, a school reunion for a school that I joined, like say there's I don't know, class of 2005
student.
reunion, and I joined the class in like 2007 or something. So sort of like that's kind of the feeling I get from it. Is it's like it's not really aimed at me because I haven't been playing the game for 10 years. Why should it be aimed at me? Like fair enough, I don't resent it or anything. But so the one hand there's that kind of weird feeling there, and on the other hand I'm just excited to see the content and some kind of like going through Molten Core as at level is something that's really exciting to me. So I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see what the outcome is. And obviously, are you excited about this as someone who did play back then?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. It also feels a little weird to be like, oh my God, it's 10 years later, and I'm still panicking about Molten Core. 10 years ago, I was panicking because I was trying to, stay out of the fire and do well in, bad gear. And now I'm like, I'm rushing to get a news post up and, get everything data mined and presented. Well,
exactly.
it's still about the same instance.
Yeah, so it's a different panic, but it's the same kind of instance around it. And obviously, the other question, which a lot of people have been asking, is, how is this going to coincide with the Warlords of Draenor release? Are we going to be doing this
Yeah.
at 90? Are we going to be doing this at 100?
Well, we'll know really soon with the
Yeah.
launch date announcement.
That's for sure true. Yeah. I mean,
But,
my
yeah.
sort of finger in the air, throwing darts, and we don't know. But it's going to be, I feel like they're going to be expecting us to be doing this at level 90. I don't think they're going to be expecting us to have already started playing the expansion, geared up, be at level 100, and also doing this content. I don't think that that's an expectation because it wouldn't make any sense,
Yeah, I mean, like, so, but before the expansion comes out, we need to have 6.0 hit, which
Yeah.
they've said will be a month or longer.
Yep.
They need to give us notice for that so people can, like kill Garrosh to get their feats of strength, to get their challenge modes done, because, some of that's going away.
Yep.
So people need time to finish that up. Then they need 6.0 to hit. And it seems weird if it would be right before BlizzCon because, you've got like top guilds trying to do progression while also
Yeah.
being at BlizzCon. I'm sure that the developers who have to do presentations don't also want to be
running down the corridor to stop
data.
Method like figuring out some terrible way to kill a
Yes.
boss at the exactly. So it would be really odd if the progression race was happening at BlizzCon. That's very strange.
Plus, we've seen with holidays when Mr. Pandaria came out, I think Brewfest was around then.
Yep.
And I believe they changed it so you didn't have to be max level to participate in some things
Okay.
because like that didn't seem fair. So like I can't picture people being like, okay, you know, it's after BlizzCon, this just hit, like you guys have to, you know, race and not, you know, be 100, but also have decent gear because I can imagine people in like 100 in quest screens like that in LFR seems to be a disaster. And
for sure. But yeah, so it seems likely to me that we're going to be able to do this at 90 and definitely not going on some. Like it definitely won't be required, but I think there'll be capacity there for it. I have a feeling that it's going to be during the launch, and that's kind of how it's going to work. So we've got a few. We're doing our questions every week. We're kind of rushing through these because I have a meeting that I have to go to. We're doing this early, so sorry for the kind of high-speed show. But anyway, we've got questions every week with the hashtag WH Weekly, W for Wowhead, H for Head Weekly. And first up this week from Bacon Wrapped Shando, great name by the way. Has there been any coverage of what there is to do at max level besides Ashran, dungeons, and garrisons? So yeah, Perk, go ahead.
I mean, so Blizzard coverage hasn't been that robust. Like even with Garrison, they've only had sort of one blog on them so far. And we've been doing a lot of coverage of things that people can do, but the max level experience just opened up quite recently. So we know that there's battle pets coming. We've been putting out a series of profession guides, but that's tied to the garrison. Something we haven't data mined yet, but which I believe we covered a few weeks ago, is that one of the quest developers was tweeting at me that there are going to be like weekly lore and story quests that you can do. Which reveal more details about some of the characters that are important in Warlords, like Azuka Blade Fury, who is the first known female warlord. And these quests will teach you more about people like that. So I think we can expect to see maybe some of that.
We've got the Tanan stuff as well.
Yeah, Tanan, I think that's coming in a new patch.
I believe that's aimed at, they're aiming for it for 6.1, which is going to be sort of some, like, spoilers, it's going to relate to the Iron Horde. And so there's definitely going to be that. Like, obviously not a massive spoiler, really, but if you read the blue post, you knew this already.
There's a lot of exploration stuff. Like, there's a ton of rare spawns. Each build they keep adding like more the items. So I also feel with the Toy Box UI that they're encouraging people to collect everything now.
Definitely.
So you know, that's something to do at max level. You know, maybe going back and getting some of the Misted Pandaria exploration items is easier now if, you know, you can solo something or the Timeless Isle isn't as busy. But there's definitely a ton of things you can collect on Draenor.
And they've also talked about a bunch of like Shadowmoon Valley having level 100 content for Horde and Frostfire Ridge having level 100 content for Alliance. They feel like
we just haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not in yet. So we feel like there's going to be a ton of level 100 sort of questing stuff to do. And obviously you've also got your raids. You've got like we don't know what scenarios are going to be like. There's a ton.
We've got challenge modes. We know that there are those weapon rewards that look super cool for doing them. So maybe they'll try to push them more this expansion than last expansion.
Exactly. And obviously Proving Grounds. There's those as well. Don't forget about Proving Grounds. You're going to need them for your LFR. So there's a ton of stuff there. Like we don't know the full extent of it yet is the honest answer to that question. Next up from Dark Matter. We haven't really covered the sub-drops. This is kind of why I pulled this question in here. Do you think that the sub-drop is due to not bringing out WOD early enough? For me, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, I feel it's also the pacing as well. Like at the start of MOP, like I think a lot of people felt overwhelmed and then that they couldn't do everything.
Oh yeah,
and now the people that stuck around trying to get everything done feel like there's nothing left to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So I feel like it wasn't paced very well.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the answer is, okay, well, you guys should have released patches, 2 months after the other and WoD should have hit last year. But I feel that if things were more evenly paced, which means taking the earlier patches and stretching them out a bit more, so more people could, feel like they finished tier 14 rating, or at the start of the expansion they didn't feel that they have to do like everything in the first.
Yeah, for sure. There was definitely a feeling of being very overwhelmed at the start, particularly when 5.1 with Landfall came out. That was, that was a huge feeling of, oh my god, I'm barely started on this, and it's terrible. It felt very sort of, particularly as someone who raids more with a casual guild, it felt very much too soon. And then Throne of Thunder was out, and we weren't even done with the first ones, and it just sort of felt kind of overwhelming. And then, even for me, like Siege of Orgrimmar came out at a point where we were only just really moving through the heroic bosses of Throne of Thunder. So my guild is sort of like the top 40%. So it's very much like we're very casual, but we're not really the sort of slowest.
Yeah,
But
I mean, even for like achievement hunting, I'm like,
yeah,
wait, I just finished like getting all these cool achievements
yeah,
for reputations, right? I didn't even finish them yet, and now
yeah.
there's like this
Yeah,
other thing to do.
exactly. Like, I mean, I feel like Throne of Thunder could definitely have launched later. Like, for me,
Yeah,
for
for sure.
100%, definitely could have launched later. Whether Siege of Orgrimmar came at a good time after Throne of Thunder, that felt better. But I still think that that whole sort of, if you take it from Throne of Thunder to Siege of Orgrimmar, that whole block could have been moved back and launched later. And I mean, it still would have been a really long gap, regardless. Like, we're obviously going to find out soon when the actual release date is. But I do think that the sub drop is just due to this incredibly long gap now. We all complained about Dragon Soul being 9 months. This is longer.
Yeah, I mean, also the messaging, like, at BlizzCon, people were like, hey, these demos look kind of unfinished. And they're
Yeah,
like, no, actually, we're farther along. So I think,
precisely.
and I feel that, while Twitter is really good, hearing some of the changes on Twitter can confuse people. Like, for example, like the Caraborn Bladespire that sort of just organically happened on Twitter, or like,
Yeah,
Blood Elves that happened. And I feel that if there was sort of more like official blogs on the progress, hyping people up, that would help with communication because,
definitely.
we love Twitter, but a lot of players aren't there. And to
For
other
sure.
players, they're just like, hey, there's this tweet out of context. What's going
Yeah,
on?
exactly. And it's sort of, there's also the kind of sort of hearing things third party. Like, if you're not someone who's reading that source, you can feel like Blizzard's kind of trying to sneak around and sort of tell people stuff on Twitter rather than being open and upfront and transparent about what's
Yeah,
going
and I
on.
mean, like, they're trying to be transparent and like answering player questions, which is awesome. It's
Yeah,
just I feel like maybe if they keep promoting that people are on Twitter, then more people will join and it will feel more official. But in the interim, I think that continuing to communicate on the forums,
yeah.
is good as well,
For
for
sure.
sure.
Absolutely. So yes, Dark Matter, we do think that, in summary. So thank you so much for your viewer questions. Thank you for watching as ever. And you can follow me on Twitter at Olivia D. Grace. It's below my screen. Perk on Peculiar. It's above her screen. And you can follow Wowhead on Wowhead. And obviously all of what we're talking about and all of everything that's going on in the beta and in World of Warcraft is on wowhead.com. Thank you so much for watching and we'll see you next time.